Focus on what your body can do. Stop worrying about what it looks like, because I can promise you nobody else cares the way that you do. 100%. Welcome to the Biking Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Smith, and I lost 50 pounds riding my bike by focusing on what my body can do. Now, I teach other women how to do the same. I am obsessed with completely flipping the script on weight loss so that we can work out to feel good and feel strong. If you are ready to stop dieting, learn how to appreciate your body, and have fun riding your bike, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Biking Wellness Podcast. And if you're just joining us for the very first time, a very special welcome to you as well. Welcome to the Biking Wellness community. I am so glad that you're here, and I am so happy that you found us. Here in the Biking Wellness community, we are all about women coming together, lifting one another up, and finding ways to really, truly enjoy our bodies for what they can do. So I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you found us, and welcome. Today's podcast episode is going to be about a topic that I have been thinking a lot about lately, and it is the topic of comparison and how when we fall into this trap of comparing ourselves with other women, comparing ourselves with other versions of ourselves, either, our high school self or our college self or our high school body or the body that we had when we were in our 20s, then we can get into a place where we just aren't feeling particularly good. And so I want to kind of pull the curtain back, and I really want to talk about this today. I think it's a topic that we are a little bit uncomfortable thinking about. And I think that when we get really honest with ourselves, though, we can realize that comparing ourselves to other women is really just not helping. And I want to offer you some different ways of looking at ourselves and our bodies so that we do feel good and that we do feel strong and that we are focusing on what our bodies can do. So let's go ahead and just really dive into this topic, because I really do feel like it's one that we can learn about and that we can really grow from. I want to start by kind of sharing a little bit of a story about myself, and it's something I may have mentioned before, but when I was 15 years old, it was actually the summer before I turned 15, I went to the beach with my family, and I was feeling really good. I was feeling confident, and I just was having a really great day. I just remember it being a really nice memory. And it was back when, we didn't have cell phones, and we definitely didn't have cell phones. We didn't have camera phones. We didn't have smartphones. And presumably it was probably my dad took a picture of me while we were at the beach. And when those pictures were developed, I was absolutely horrified. I saw the picture of myself in my bathing suit. I had, thought that I looked really great in this bathing suit, and I just didn't in that photo. And I tore that photo up into pieces. And that was just kind of the end of it for me. And the reason why I'm kind of bringing this up is because I know that 15-year-old me, or almost 15-year-old me, was in the habit of comparing myself with other girls. And that habit stuck with me for so long as I, graduated from high school and went to college and got a job and, was working full time. I was still always comparing myself to other women. I was comparing my body to other women's bodies. And I know that you probably have done this too, because so many women do this. It's kind of how we were raised. It's kind of how we were brought up. And our society has encouraged us to be constantly looking at other women and comparing ourselves to other women, looking at women in magazines or now on social media or on the internet or on the YouTubes and all of those other places. There is this kind of societal idea of what a woman should look like. And we're encouraged to be active and to be strong, not for the sake of being active and strong, but for the sake of looking a particular way, for being skinny. And I'm telling you, I did not feel skinny in this photo at all. So fast forward a number of years, I was going through a family photo album, and I realized that the photo resurrected itself. My mother God bless her, took this photo and taped it back together and put it in the photo album. And when I asked her why, she said, because it reminds me of a time when I was your age and when I had those kinds of thoughts. And I know that my mom really wanted to, preserve this moment of my history, not as like a bad moment, but as a great moment, as a moment of, this is my daughter at the beach and she's beautiful and I love her just as she is. And I remember in the moment of seeing that picture taped back together, first of all, I was still a little horrified at the image itself, but I also had this profound sense of gratitude that my mom saw something in it that I couldn't. And I was hopeful that one day I would feel that way too. And so now when I look at that photo that I ripped up, I know that, there's just something really special in the fact that my mom kept it together. And it made me want to share this with you because I know that I was coming from a place of comparison. I was coming from a place of thinking that my body wasn't good enough because it didn't look like other bodies or it didn't look like what I thought my body should be looking like. And so given the fact that I took this photo and I ripped it up, I wanted to come to you today and say that I've been noticing a lot of this lately, a lot of women comparing themselves to others, not just in terms of how their bodies look, but also what their bodies are capable of. I know that some women are really in the biking wellness community very anxious about, posting their rides on Strava, on social media, because they're worried that people will think they're not riding far enough, they're not riding fast enough, they're not riding enough. So that's why I'm here today. I want to talk about this idea of comparison and I want to break it down. And I want us to really kind of take a step back and think about how we want to see ourselves and how we want to see our bodies and how we want to really celebrate them and celebrate what they can do. So the first thing I want to talk about is why comparison is so easy to find ourselves like falling into it and doing it. Now, the obvious one, the one that we always talk about is social media. We talk about how social media is a highlight reel, how we're always seeing the best of everyone, the best of their lives, the photos that they've curated to look the best. And even though we know that, each and every single one of us knows that, we still can find ourselves falling into this comparison trap of thinking, why isn't my life like hers? Why is she able to get out on the bike so much more than I am? Why does she look so strong? Why does she look so good? Why does she look so skinny? It's so easy to fall into that. Like, oh my goodness, her family looks wonderful. Her grandkids look awesome. Her, kids look fantastic. And she's just living the dream. And I just wish that mine was like that too. We can't help ourselves sometimes from doing that. So social media is kind of one of those obvious places where we don't necessarily think so much about it being that highlight reel. And we are really concerned that we're presenting ourselves in a particular way. And we look at other ways that people are representing themselves and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. So that is one easy place for us to start comparing ourselves to others. Another thing that can be really, a place where we find ourselves comparing ourselves is when we're looking in the mirror, when we're looking at photos of ourselves, like the one that I was talking about that I ripped up when I was almost 15 years old. Looking back, I realized that, that photo was just one snapshot of time. That was just one angle of me on the beach that day. And who knows if it was an accurate representation of me or not, and who really cares? Because what it is a beautiful picture of me having the best time on the beach. And that's what is so freaking great about it. But if I focus on what my body looked like, and I focus on how my body isn't skinny enough compared to other women, that's when, 15-year-old or other girls, that's when 15-year-old me rips up a picture. And so that's another really easy place for us to compare ourselves to other people is when we're looking at photos. The next place where it's really easy to fall into comparing ourselves to other people is when we are looking at women we're riding with on a group ride. Maybe it's easier for them to get up hills. Maybe we feel like they look better in their biking clothes than we do. Maybe we feel like they're stronger riders than we are. And instead of just leaning into the fact that we are having an awesome time on our bikes, we're worried about whether or not we're holding the group back. And we're worried about competing with the person next to us, make sure that we're riding fast enough and wanting to make sure that we kind of beat them. So that's another place where comparison really can kind of sneak into our lives when we don't necessarily want it to. And we've been really kind of trained to think this way, not just by diet culture, not just by society, but just by human nature. At one point in time in human development, if you weren't presenting yourself in such a way to the world that you were likable and that you were attractive and that other people wanted to be around you, then it could be a matter of life or death. You could be cast out of your group. And so that's why a lot of times we can easily fall into this comparison trap where we're comparing ourselves and our lives to other people, is because we are essentially wired to want to fit in. And when we feel like we don't, that is when we start giving ourselves a really hard time. And so I want to say that this way of us comparing ourselves to others is so natural for us to do. It's so normal for us to do, but it isn't necessarily helpful. It isn't life or death anymore if somebody likes you. In fact, if somebody doesn't like you, it's probably just fine. As we kind of move through this episode, those are some of the things that I want you to start to think about, is that it's so easy to fall into it, but it isn't necessary anymore. We can survive just fine without making sure that everybody likes us, but it wasn't always the case. So that has a lot to do with why, especially when we're teenagers and we're adolescents, we do this sort of thing. But that behavior is ingrained, and it's something that, though we may not do as much and as often as we get older, we are still really kind of susceptible to falling into that trap. So, okay, why is this so bad? Well, first of all, it feels bad. When we compare ourselves to another woman or to another person and we feel like we're not measuring up, it feels bad. It makes us feel miserable. And you can go out there on your bike and you could do a really great ride and you can crush it, but still feel like you're a failure because someone else did a ride that day that was longer than yours or faster than yours. And another thing is, you could take a picture and you could think, wow, this was great. I have a great outfit on today. I'm so glad that today's the day they're taking a picture. And then when you look at it, later on, you're actually horrified. You're like, oh, that does not look great at all. This happened to me recently. I took a picture with my coworkers and I started comparing myself to my other coworkers in the picture. And I thought, oh my gosh, they look so good. They look amazing and they look vibrant and they look great in their clothes. And I just feel big in mine, to the point where I went home that day and took another picture of myself in the mirror just to make sure, like, oh, I don't actually look like that. What is this all about? I mean, this was just a couple of months ago. So I share this with you just because I'm doing this too. I'm still kind of in this process of figuring all of this out and having to catch myself and say, you really should be focusing on the fun that you had in that photo. The fun and like how funny it was that all four of us came to work wearing complimentary outfits that day. That is what I was focusing on in the moment. That is what I was excited about when the photo was taken. So why, after the photo is taken, am I picking myself apart and picking my body apart? You start to realize that everybody's different and we all have different body types. We all have a different focus. And when we start focusing on what our body can do and we start focusing on the moments and enjoying those moments, that's when we start to realize, oh, not everybody's going to be just like me. This happened to me when I was younger too. I was on swim team. Actually, the picture that I tore up was with me in a bathing suit when I was almost 15 years old. It was a swim team bathing suit. I loved to swim competitively, but it became harder for me as I went through puberty, as my body started to change. My body wasn't as optimized for swimming fast as it had been previously. And I found that my performance wasn't as strong as it was previously. And instead of realizing, oh, my body's just changing, I thought that there was something actually wrong with me. Now, as you're listening, when you're thinking about yourself and your body, and, as we get older and as we become women of a certain age, our bodies are not going to perform the same way that they did 10, 15, 20 years ago. And that's okay. Our body is changing. And so it's so important for us to really kind of see that this is a problem, that the comparison is a problem, and embrace the fact that we're just growing and we're changing and we're different and everything is going to be okay. We can still do great, wonderful things, especially if we don't keep falling into that habit of comparing ourselves to other people, because then we ignore all of the things, the amazing things that we are currently doing and accomplishing. Now, I just wanted to make kind of a quick comment because I keep bringing up photos, and I know that, mirrors can be an issue for some people. And I want to just say a couple of things here really quickly. Like, first of all, what you see in a mirror or in a photo is just a snapshot in time. It's literally one moment and one angle. Some mirrors are more flattering than others. I mean, the mirror in my closet is not as flattering as the mirror in my bathroom, which isn't as flattering as the mirror in my work bathroom. Every mirror is different, okay? And then every photo is different too. It's a snapshot in time, it's a particular angle, and it's really subjective. So please, 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 when you see a photo of yourself, and I have seen this happen over and over and over again with women in different groups that I'm in saying, oh my gosh, I saw this photo of myself and I was horrified. How did I let myself go? How did I let myself get this big? And I'm here to tell you that it's just a photo. It's just a snapshot in time, and that there are things that we can focus on other than our perception of what we look like and what our body looks like in those moments. And the last thing I want to say about this before I move on to my other comments on comparison is that, we were never supposed to, from an evolutionary standpoint, we were never supposed to look at ourselves this much. We weren't supposed to be looking at ourselves in mirrors, on social media, in candid photos, the way that we are. We were supposed to see our bodies like in a reflection in a window or a reflection on the water as we're, on a boat on a lake or something like that. So that's another thing that I want you to kind of think about and keep in mind, is that we were never supposed to be looking at ourselves like this. And the fact that we are is causing us a lot of pain. It just doesn't feel good to focus on picking apart the physical aspects of ourselves and our bodies that we don't like. So how do we stop? How do we break free from comparing ourselves to other people all of the time? What are some really practical things we can do? Because me, I'm always here to bring you the step-by-step, okay, here's the problem, here's the solution way of dealing with what is causing us hardship and pain and sadness. And so when you find yourself comparing your image to what you think your image should look like, comparing yourself to somebody else, comparing your bike ride, your movement to someone else's movement, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm at this party and there's food everywhere and I'm eating all of it and no one else seems to be having this problem like me. What I want you to do in those moments is take a deep breath and shift your focus from other people to you, to yourself. And so instead of thinking like, I should look like that, I should be able to control myself around food like she can, I should be fast on my bike like she is. What I want you to think about is I want you to think about what is going on with you. What is happening with you and your body that is either more positive or more neutral? You can say something like, hey, I got out there on the bike today and that was really great. Or, you know what? I've gotten stronger on the bike in the past month for me. Or, hey, I'm looking in the mirror and my hair looks freaking awesome. Little confession here. I love my hair. I just love it. And so when I kind of start falling into these traps of comparison and thinking that something about me doesn't look great, I'll just be like, honey, you've got some really awesome hair. Those are the sorts of things that I encourage you to do is, think about, okay, well, what is something that you can focus on that you're a little bit more neutral about or that you like a little bit more? Like maybe you love your eyes. Maybe your eyes are a shade that you really like. Maybe you have a nice smile. What is it about yourself that you can kind of focus on that you like? Thinking about, again, it doesn't have to be what you look like. It can be what your body can do. Thinking about, oh yeah, I got out on the bike today. I went for a walk today. I am lifting these weights and my body is strong enough to lift my baby, to lift my kids, to lift my grandkids. And that's freaking awesome. Shift that focus from other people and focus on you. And then also focus on the good stuff. What is it about you and your body that you love, that you appreciate? What's going well? Our brains are just wired to focus on what's wrong because that's what keeps us alive. We're always looking for danger. Our primitive brain is constantly scanning the world thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to be happening next? How can I keep my body and my person safe? And so we're constantly scanning for what's wrong. But when we are aware of that and we shift and start scanning for what's right, then you can have a different perspective. And it takes you from comparing yourself to somebody else to focusing more on you and what is good or at least neutral about you and your body. And I know you've heard this from me a million times and you'll hear it a little more, but focus on what your body can do. Stop worrying about what it looks like because I can promise you nobody else cares the way that you do. 100%. No one else is looking at you through the critical lens that you are. And if they are, and if they're telling you, then those aren't people that you want in your life. Okay? So no one is looking at you the way that you're looking at yourself. And if they are not people that you want to be surrounding with yourself with, which brings me to the last thing that I think can be really helpful for you is to really kind of filter what you allow yourself access to in your environment. Now, as much as it's easy to say focus on you, one of the things that can be really helpful when you're in this process of transitioning to being more able to focus on yourself is to think about what's going on around you, who you're surrounding yourself with, what you're looking at social media, if anything. If you can stay away from it, then by all means. But the idea is that, it doesn't hurt to filter what you allow yourself access to, kind of unfollow the people that make you feel bad or that you let make you feel bad and get off Strava for a little bit. I actually stopped sharing my Strava publicly. My Strava is totally private right now. I don't even look at it anymore. So if you don't even know what Strava is, that's great. It's not necessary. It's a social media app basically for active people. And it's really fun. But if it's making you feel bad, then get off of it. Stop. Focus your thoughts on your efforts, your progress, your consistency, not chasing someone else's ideal or, constantly looking at someone who's riding more than you are, who's stronger than you are, who's faster than you are. That just doesn't feel good. It would be one thing if that motivated us to do better, but generally it doesn't. It just makes us feel like, what the heck am I doing over here? And makes us more in line with wanting to give up. And we are not giving up. That's the great thing about this community is that we are here to support each other and build one another up. I am here to support you. And I am telling you right now that you are strong, that you are thoughtful, that you are beautiful, and that you are able to make your life what you want it to be. And nothing physically about you needs you to change in order for you to feel good about yourself right now. Here's the big takeaway from this episode. Comparison is sneaky. It catches up on us. We don't realize we're doing it. And it's everywhere in our lives, from social media to looking in the mirror to looking at a photo to going on a group ride. All of those places are places where we might find ourselves comparing ourselves with other women. The truth is, though, it doesn't help. It doesn't make us feel good. It doesn't make us feel better. It doesn't motivate us. It's just demoralizing and feels bad. So it keeps us from reaching our goals. It keeps us from motivating. So we have to start learning how to recognize it and then going through the process of noticing it so that we can actually stop it and so that we can choose to think a different way about ourselves and about our bodies. Because when we focus on ourselves, then you are looking at what your body can do, what your body is capable of, celebrating your progress towards your goals, and not worrying about everyone else, not worrying about the noise. Now, I am not talking about if you have an accountability buddy and you have somebody that, you're both striving towards goals together and you're building one another up. That's freaking awesome. And I 100% encourage that. I'm talking about you comparing yourself with somebody that makes you feel bad. And that's what we're trying to identify. And that's what we're trying to stop. So the next time you find yourself comparing yourself to somebody else, I want you to shift the focus back to you and say, what is one thing about me that I can appreciate right now? What is one thing that my body did for me today? When you can start to shift that focus, that's where your confidence is going to build. That's where you're going to become more consistent in focusing on you instead of focusing on everything else that is going on around you. Okay? I do have a favor. If this episode was helpful to you and if you got something out of it, and if you have a friend that you know needs to hear this message today, please, please, please share it with her. She will be so thankful. And we are all in this community just so thankful to be reaching more women and helping build more women up, because that's what we're here for. We're here to support each other, have a lot of fun moving our bodies, and have some really freaking great and amazing bike rides. Speaking of amazing, I hope that you have an amazing day, a fantastic week, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Biking Wellness Podcast. Be sure to head on over to sassy.com/guide, SASCY.com/guide, to get my completely free Lose Weight Biking Quick Start Guide so that you can get started with simple, doable weight loss today. That's SASCY.com/guide.